I'm joined now by the mayor of Miami Gardens, Mayor Oliver Gilbert. Thank you so much for joining us. You are in Miami-Dade County, of course, one of the hot spots of coronavirus in the country. How are all of you there coping? How are you handling this crisis?
One day at a time, and one person at a time, and communicating the idea, to as many people as we can, that this is something that we have to discipline ourselves to try to curtail. The spread of COVID is something right now that we can address in the absence of a vaccine by being disciplined, by wearing masks, by having the appropriate distance, by not doing things that we're used to doing until we can do them safely.
There's so many mixed messages from many different levels of government. Do you feel like your residents are getting the correct message?
Well, I think our residents are probably ignoring the president, but I think that they're getting the right message from our local government. And I think that they understand that people have different interests. So everyone's going to consider everything. Everybody's going to consider the economy. Everybody's going to consider health, but it's what proportion you actually consider them in. The first and foremost, it's their health and safety that matters to us here in Miami Gardens. So when we say, we said earlier than most that you have to wear a mask. We never reopened like most places in Miami-Dade County and most places in Florida. We never opened our parks. We never opened, assembly uses. We didn't do those things because we realized that it wasn't safe. And I think that the numbers are actually bearing that out now. The spikes and the increases are bearing that out now. So there may be mixed messages from abroad, but from here, we've been pretty consistent and we've been pretty diligent in actually messaging it. We have a great messaging team here and our public affairs team, because we're finding innovative ways to talk to populations, different populations, about the same thing, being safe no matter what.
And tell us about your population. You do have a large African American and Black and Caribbean population. We know that, of course, members of that community are somehow affected more by COVID-19 than the majority of Americans. Tell us about your population, what it's like there, and how they've been able to navigate through knowing that the people there are considered extremely high risk.
Well, we started talking about it earlier than most. So it became a national story maybe 3 weeks after we actually started talking about it. But we had a program called—
Ask you about the census, because you have said that your population is probably larger than you realize, of course, because there may be undocumented people living there. How are you handling that issue, knowing the problems and the issues and the controversy surrounding the census and undocumented residents?
One of the things that I did as mayor is create a department of the Office of Civic Engagement. They work with me. And we do things like message around the census. So we're actually outpacing the national average now for census response. And we're outpacing the Florida average also. But we have to keep it up. But we embedded census communications in everything the city does. So in every communication we do, there should be something regarding the census. In all of our parks, when they were open, there was something regarding the census. We're constantly partnering and putting information out there with folks about the census, because we understand the importance of being counted. We know that when these funds come down from the federal government, they're going to come down based on population. And we're going to have to provide services to you, whether you allow yourself to be counted or not. So we need you to be counted so we can have more money to provide those services.
And what about the state level, dealing with Governor Ron DeSantis, who, of course, has been very vocal about having the state continue to be open? What's your relationship with the state, and what are your thoughts on their very aggressive attitude toward reopening?
I disagree. I disagree. I think reasonable people can disagree. I think they're probably wrong. Well, the governor is the governor of the entire state. The mayor is the mayor of the entire county. What our structure of governance allows them to make broad rules and us to be more restrictive within those rules. So I assume that they're going to do what they think is best on the state level and the county level. They should assume that I'm going to do what I think is best for the city of Miami Gardens. So to the extent that we need to be more restrictive than them, we're going to do that, because ultimately we can answer the question about rebuilding economies. We can answer the question about unemployment if we ever decide to really get the system fixed. We can answer the question about all these other things. We cannot answer the question about people dying.
Absolutely.
Like, these people have to die. And when you start talking about COVID-19 and how it affects families and how it can affect our families, when you start talking about sending kids to school, sending back to school, and the teachers back in the school, and the janitors and bus drivers back in the school, and you start saying it's a minimal risk, minimal is something that's extraordinary when you're talking about the lives of kids. Minimal is something that's extraordinary when you're talking about the lives of teachers. So when we use words like minimal, I think sometimes we're glossing over what we're really saying. Some people are going to die, but just not as much as you think. That's what we're saying.
And speaking of schools, I know it's not solely your decision, but obviously you have influence. What is happening with schools reopening for kids in Miami Gardens?
It's Miami-Dade County, and we have a superintendent, Alberto Cavallo, and our school, uh, our district is a wonderful district. Actually, my first boss, Dorothy Bendros Mendengal, she's on the school board right now, and today is her birthday. So if you're out there and you're watching, happy birthday. They're going to be the people who ultimately make the decision. We do have to coordinate it because, of course, they're inside of cities and they're inside of the county. I don't think that you can open schools when you have this level of infection spreading through the community. I think that that's probably like putting the cart before, well, everything. That's putting the cart before the horse, the mule, the whatever you want. I don't think you can do that. And so I think that that's probably where they are. And if you are going to do it in some parts of the state, I think that you probably always need to make allowances for parts of the state that are seriously impacted, not to do that without any penalty. That means you're going to have to make provisions for parents who don't want to send their kids back to school. They don't feel comfortable to actually have their kids schooled virtually or through the computer or something, without penalty for the children of the school districts or the families.
And that, of course, leads to economic issues, especially for African Americans and Latinos and people of color. How do you address the economic situation now? Because many African Americans are out of work.
Well, I think unemployment isn't going to be limited to African Americans or Latinos. It's going to be everybody, especially places down here in South Florida where everything is connected to tourism, and so many fewer people are actually coming here. But I think that's something not just regionally or statewide. Those are the questions that the federal government should be talking about right now. They should be talking about how to address those businesses, how to provide real relief, how to give people money to actually keep people employed in small businesses. You know, they passed a round of dollars that was aimed at small businesses, but what it really went to was a lot of big businesses who needed to apply to it. Listen, we have the IRS as a country. We know which businesses are actually small. We can actually identify them and direct resources that way. I think we probably should.
And finally, in terms of Miami Gardens itself, what you're able to control or at least have some sort of say so in, is there a possibility of flattening the curve in your area?
Well, we've actually done a little better in our area. We haven't increased at the same level as other areas because we've been more restrictive. So when I say we didn't allow assembly uses, look, you couldn't come hang out at a bar here. They closed the bars. They were never really opened here. When people allowed 50% in restaurants, we were still just allowing 25% in restaurants. When people were opening parks and encouraging people to come and play, that parks are open, we were saying, no, the parks are closed except for walking trails. If you want to go walk a trail, that's fine. Otherwise, no, the parks are closed. We don't want that interaction. So we never went as far as other people did. And so if we can just get people back to this level, it would probably be very helpful.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time, Mayor Oliver Gilbert, Mayor of Miami Gardens. Thank you so much.
Thank you.